Okay. This thing working? All right, it's working. Yay, we working. We working. All right. Hello, everybody. E here, back again to read more from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. All right, should be able to finish chapter 3 tonight. Just as a recap, Cy and Hank and a bunch of other folks are in a rural sheriff's jail, and that's where we're picking up. Father Time, Peter, and Clay are all trying to break them out. They just got caught, and that's where we're picking up. So, let me drink some drink, and we'll get started. I left my glasses inside, so I'll just have to struggle bus it. All right, for those of you following along at home, we are on page 265, chapter 3, subchapter 16. That's where we are. Let's jump into it. 16. Cy watched the bald officer with the mutton chops walk in with Father Time, Blaze, and was that Paper in tow? The three of them were ushered into the same cell as Toothless and Fat Man, and Cy felt his whole world collapse. What the hell were they going to do now that Father Time had joined them behind bars? He half expected to see Mother Nurture and Mom shuffle in next, their hands and feet shackled, the chains tinkling like mocking laughter. "Y'all get comfortable. You're going to be here for a while," Mutton Chops said with a chuckle before leaving the way he'd come in, whistling a merry tune until the door slammed shut behind him. Father Time stood at the bars across the way, heralding Cy. "Are you okay, Cy?" "Yes, sir. I think I broke my shoulder, but I'm all right." "They hurt you?" asked Father Time. "No, sir." "He did it to himself," said Hank, trying to ram his way out the back of that old paddy wagon. "Boy bent hell out of those doors. He hit him so hard. It was a sight to behold, I tell you." "Good," said Father Time. "It's not good you hurt yourself, but I love the idea that they're going to have to replace the doors on that wheeled prison box of theirs. You okay, Hank? They didn't hurt you, did they?" "No, boss. I'm fine, all things considered. Not looking forward to Monday, though. They're going to string me up, I can feel it." "That ain't going to happen, my friend. Wish I had your confidence, boss." "Have I ever let you down before?" asked Father Time. Not that I can recollect. No, sir." "Exactly. Sit tight. We'll be on our way soon." Then, craning his neck to Blaze and Peter behind him, "Blaze?" "Yes, sir," the quiet woman said. "You ready?" "Yes, sir. I just hope I don't let you down." "All I'm asking is that you try." "Yes, sir." With that, Blaze approached the bars, and Father Time backed away. Blaze dropped to her knees, settled on her haunches, and leaned forward, as if making to kiss the rods. Pursing her lips, she blew on the iron. A fine orange gout of fire sputtered from her lips. She pinched her lips tighter together, as if attempting to whistle, and the flame turned a brilliant blue. A high whine pierced Cy's ears. Cy squinted against it, watching the spectacle. He couldn't believe his eye. Blaze worked at the bars like a blowtorch, heating the welds at the crossbars until they glowed white hot. "I'll be damned," muttered Hank. "I will just be damned to hell." What's that girl doing?" asked Toothless, but no one acknowledged, much less responded to him. "What's the plan after she gets them cut?" Hank asked Father Time. "We'd still need to get through the brick. I got that covered. Shouldn't be too much longer. I told the others to give us an hour. If I weren't back by then, they're to start plan B." "And that is?" asked Hank. Father Time checked his wrist as if he had a watch there. He did not. "Shouldn't be much longer now." Blaze had made it through 10 bars in under 3 minutes, by Cy's estimation. Each time she cut through one, Peter would use his shirt as a makeshift oven mitt to tug the bar away from its respective crossing. Just enough so that it didn't cool off and reattach, nullifying all of Blaze's work. After 2 bars had been worked through, Peter's shirt was smoking. He snatched it over his head and balled it up, doubling the protection. "How's she doing that?" asked Fat Man, but everyone ignored him as they had ignored Toothless's question. "Bunch of freaks," murmured Toothless. Again, no one paid the 2 any mind. "You folks having fun in there?" said a voice from the cell block's only window. Shit, I fucked up. Hang on. "You folks having fun in there?" asked a voice from the cell block's only window, a barred opening 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide set into the brick wall about 4 feet from the ground. Cy glanced over to find Bull's grinning face peering between the bars. "Bull!" Cy hollered. "Shh!" Father Time hissed. "I told you, boy," Hank told Cy. "We take care of our own." "You folks ready to get out of here?" asked Bull. "Not yet," said Father Time. "What?" Cy nearly yelled. "Why not?" "We got to give Blaze time to work," Father Time said. Then, to Bull, he added, "Mother with you?" "Yes, sir," said Bull. "Her and Quill, they're out front, hiding, watching the cops through the window. If they owl hoot, that means the cops are coming. If I owl hoot, they know we're ready. Hopefully, they don't have to hoot. Not looking to bend any cops around my neck. They got guns. I might be strong, but I ain't that strong. If shooting starts, I want you all gone. You hear me?" said Father Time. "I hear you. Yes, sir. But I probably won't listen. Stubborn as a mule," Father Time said, laughing softly. "Stubborn as a bull, boss. Not a mule," Bull said, and gave Father Time a wink. "What are we going to do if we manage to get out of here?" asked Hank. "They ain't going to let us go without a chase. We're talking about the federal government here. They don't take kindly to their prisoners running off, and our train ain't anything that could ever be confused with inconspicuous. Once we hit the rails, they'll be waiting for us at every stop along the way. We'll cross that bridge when we get there," said Father Time in a tone that brooked no further discussion. Blaze managed to cut around her cell's lockbox in under 10 minutes. Peter used his shirt to catch the box and ease it down to the floor, where it sat smoldering. The smell in the cells was awful and caused Cy and the other men to choke more than once. They could only hope the scent of hot steel didn't carry under the door, down the hall, and into the lobby of the police station. Father Time pushed the cell door wide with little effort. The hinges didn't even squeal. Blaze slipped past him and out of the cell, making a beeline for the cage inside which sat Cy, Hank, and 7 of the tent men, where she set to work blowtorching their respective lockbox. This time, Hank used his shirt to mimic Peter's actions in the cell across the way. Blaze was less than 2 bars away from being done when a faint, slightly shrill hooting poured in from the window at which Bull stood. "Shit," grunted Father Time. "What do you want me to do, boss?" asked Bull, his eyes suddenly cranked wide with fear. I, Father Time stammered. Footsteps clomping down the hallway outside the jail's single door. The jingling of keys soon followed. Everyone inside the holding area held their breaths. You could have heard a mouse fart. The metallic clink of a key sliding into a doorknob sent a shiver of fear through Cy. This was it. They'd failed. It was all over. What do you want me to do?" Blaze hissed. I, Father Time stammered again, then, "Hold up! I'm shitting in here!" cried Toothless. "God damn it, old timer. You smell like a smelting pit," called whichever officer who was currently on the other side of the door. "Is that grub you feeding us, you bastards?" hollered Toothless. "Got my bowels smoking." "You better flush." The voice faded away, followed shortly by muttered expletives. until all was quiet once again. For shit's sweet sake, Hank said, loosing a long, pent-up breath. Thought that was our hides for sure. I reckon next time you won't be so mean to an old man you don't know from Adam, eh? Listen here, you stubborn old Hank. Father Time shot the Ferris wheel operator a look. Hank shut up. Then, to Toothless, Father Time said, in the most quiet voice he could muster, thank you. You ain't gotta thank me nor Parker. Oh, wait a second. You ain't gotta thank me nor Parker. We plan on leaving with you, so all's right with the world. Yeah, said the fat man. We appreciate, getting us out of here. Sorry I called that boy a freak. Y'all ain't too bad after all. Father Time hadn't been there for Hank's back and forth with Toothless and Parker, and from the look on his face, he didn't take too kindly to finding out they'd called Cy a freak, but he held his tongue. That was for the best, Cy thought. What are y'all in here for anyway? Asked Parker. Skipped out on the draft, said Hank begrudgingly. Hell, I don't blame you, said Parker. But why's the boy here? He ain't old enough to serve no how. They just packed us all up. Didn't care none about who they took, said Hank. Cy could tell it pained Hank to be nice to the other prisoners, but the fact that he did it anyway made Cy respect him all the more. Hang on. My eye. What? Okay. What the hell did you do? Hank asked as Blaze got back to work, melting the bars. Killed a man what touched my boy, said Parker. Jake here. Parker hitched a thumb at Toothless. Helped me hunt him down. We scalped him like a pair of engines. Cy watched a shadow pass over Father Time's face and wondered what was going on in the man's head as he listened to Parker tell his tale. Man, if you can rightly call him such, or a school teacher. Taught my boy. He put hands on him in an adult way, so I took the hair off his head. Only seemed the right thing to do. If you ask me, we did the world a service. But here we is, locked up, like we're the ones did wrong. At the conclusion of Parker's story, Father Time nodded, as if he understood all too well, and agreed completely. The most fun I had since my wife died, Jake said, punctuating his statement with an old folks cackle. I planned to tan the man's scalp and make me a codpiece, but them out there would arrested us, confiscated it. That there was mine. Well, mine and Parker's, I reckon. Right, said Parker. The fat man reached under his greasy shirt and picked at his belly button. He then smelled at what he'd found there, and Cy thought he was going to be sick. He couldn't get away from these two quick enough for his own liking. Got it, Blaze said. Hank caught the box in his shirt-covered hands before it could hit the floor and sighed with relief. He laid the bundle down as Blaze started work on the final cell, holding the last of the tent men. No one occupied the fourth cell. They were almost home free. But what are we going to do once she's gotten us out? Hank asked again. Bull's going to do what Bull does, was all Father Time said in response. This I gotta see, said Jake, formerly known as Toothless. What's he gonna do? Tear the whole wall down? Father Time smiled. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Jake laughed. I weren't ever one to turn down a free show, by God. Let's get on with it. Just now joining us, I'm reading from the last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to buy a copy. Hey, Zeely, I don't know if you're still here. Just dropping in to say hello. I started your book this week. Don't want any spoilers. Awesome. I hope you enjoy it. All right. 17. Outside, Mother Nurture and Marianne Stout lurked in the shadows of the police station carport. Marianne's knees were killing her, squatted like she was behind one of the patrol cars. Both women could see clearly inside the station by way of a large window that looked in on the lobby. 3 of the cops had left after getting the car fire under control with the help of the local volunteer fire department. The smoldering wreck lay dormant in the middle of the parking lot, not a patrol car, but they assumed one of the cops' personal vehicles. This assumption arrived after they witnessed two cops get in the same civilian car and drive off. They hurt Cy. I will burn this entire place to the ground, said Marianne. I know, love. You've said that a dozen times so far. Yes, because I mean it. I know you do. Now, keep your voice down. Marianne wanted to reply that she had already lowered her voice as much as humanly possible, considering the degree of rage burning inside her, but kept her mouth shut all the same. She realized, upon reflection, that she had never been this mad nor terrified for someone other than her brother and herself in all her life. Not even the pair of hobos who had attacked the train years back had filled her with such animosity and fear. She'd been angry and frightened then, yes, but now something was different. She'd been able to hold and comfort her child. It didn't matter to her if Cy was her adopted son. She couldn't have loved him more had she birthed him herself. But now these men had stolen her baby away, and she hadn't a clue as to how he was holding up. I'll kill them all if they... Quill, I know you're upset, but now's not the time. When will it be the time? Snapped Marianne. Mother Nurture shifted to look Marianne in the eyes. Even in the dark, Marianne could see the love and care in Mother Nurture's gaze. If they harm Cy whatsoever, I will allow you to rain down hellfire on this entire building and all who are employed under its roof. But I don't think that will be necessary. Bull would have told us if Cy was in any present danger. He'll be out before you know it. Then we'll have to figure out what we're going to do about the feds. What do you mean? Mother Nurture's face grew somehow darker, even in the deepest shadows the carport had to offer. They aren't going to allow us to jailbreak our people without attempting to hunt us down. And, I fear, doing so would be incredibly easy. Our train and traveling show aren't anything that could ever be confused with inconspicuous. They'll find us. Eventually. It will only be a matter of time. Marianne was suffused with a sudden and overwhelming sense of despair. Mother Nurture was right. This entire plan was insane, considering the likely repercussions of their actions. That Father Time and Mother Nurture had gone ahead with it anyway was proof that her family, her beloved carnival, truly would do anything to take care of each other, even if those actions led to the carnival's demise. It was a testament to their character. We'll be fugitives for the rest of our lives, said Mother Nurture after a time, but we will always do what needs to be done. Now who's the mind reader? Marianne laughed inwardly. What kind of psychic was she that she hadn't seen this coming? She recalled Cy and Mother Nurture on separate occasions, how she sometimes, let's be honest here, most of the time, ignored the will of the fates and shunned the images shown to her of future events. But to linger on them, to listen to the fates' hideous voices and the horrors they revealed to her, was to damn herself to a state of near constant terror. Even moments of happiness to come were blighted by the assurance that nothing, good or bad, lasted forever. The knowledge that bad times would pass was comforting, but understanding that trials and tribulations would eventually steamroll those blissful moments into so much paste was more than she could bear. Better, in her mind, to react to tragedy as it came instead of sitting around waiting for it to rear its ugly head. For instance, she had been shown this night, had seen the FBI raid up until the point the besooted men had pulled her friends and family from the train, but had switched off her view once Cy came into the picture. What would the feds want with her guiltless son? She'd figured many of the men would be taken away, yet there was no chance Cy would be included. What reason would the agents have to arrest a child? In the end, she had been a callous fool, one whose only care lay with the safety of her child. But she felt that every mother was guilty of such singular vision, whether that vision be prescient or not. I'll kill them, Marianne said now. So as you said, Mother Nurture loosed a sigh. Is there anything I can do for you? You can give me that street sweeper your husband keeps under your bed and let me blow those men away. That might help. Considerably, I should add. If the need arises, you have my blessing. But for now, please try and relax. Marianne chuffed. Easier said and all that, my friend. The worst part of this early morning jailbreak thus far had been watching one of the cops rise from his chair and head down the corridor leading to Marianne and Mother Nurture had assumed the cell block inside which Cy and the others were being held. Marianne had nearly bolted from cover, and Mother Nurture had been forced to physically hold her back, lest the whole plan go south in a heartbeat. Marianne's righteous anger and need to save Cy had made her strike out at her friend, and the other woman had allowed Marianne to assault her with quick, light blows while Mother Nurture's grip remained firmly in place. How could Marianne believe she could wage war on an entire police station to aid her child when she couldn't even manage to remove her friend's hands from her person? But this was the dichotomy of parenthood, the need to protect while knowing there was little one could do effectively stave off the evil. The need to protect while knowing there was little one could do to effectively stave off the evil of the world. I'll burn this place to the ground, said Marianne. Mother Nurture had seemingly reached her limit and no longer responded to Marianne's promises of death and destruction. Now they could only wait and hope that Father Time's plan went beyond the rescue phase. Marianne cursed Mother Nurture inwardly for mentioning the likely aftermath of the jailbreak. She couldn't blame the woman too much. She should have realized the feds wouldn't turn a blind eye to the escape of their prized captives, and blaming someone else for one's own blindness, or, in Marianne's case, willful ignorance, was the height of hypocrisy. So, with Mother Nurture at her side, and her own knees stiffening to the point of agony, Marianne Stout waited and waited and waited some more. She hadn't once thought about her brother, who was now a prisoner like Cy. Cy watched as Blaze cut the final lockbox from the last occupied cell. He also saw what happened next coming a mile away, as if he shared with his mother the gift of extrasensory perception. None of the tent men were stationed at the cell door, ready to catch the box when it fell. Because of this, one of the men, a guy named Randy, shot forward at the last minute and reached out in an attempt to keep the box from clattering noisily to the concrete floor. In his haste, he'd not protected his hands with his shirt like the others had done, so the box, molten bits and all, landed square in his unprotected hands. Flesh sizzled, and wispy threads of smoke snaked from his palms. It was nearly an eternity between the lockbox connecting with Randy's flesh and his eventual wails of agony, so long that Cy had time to be impressed with the man's fortitude, until finally Randy's mouth fell open and he shrieked like a cat with its tail in lava. Fuck, grunted Hank as he raced to aid the man. What happened next happened so quickly that Cy would look back on this series of events and not remember a great deal of what occurred, which was this. Randy's screams were followed immediately by the clopping footsteps of approaching officers. How many, no one knew, but they weren't quiet about their race to the cell block. Bull, now! Father Time hollered. Cy somehow managed to take his eyes off Randy's smoking hands to look toward the room's only window. Bull had his big meaty paws wrapped around 2 of the 5 bars set into the brick. Muscles bulged like mountains in his forearms as he reared back once, twice, then a third time. With each tug, Bull loosened the bricks securing the bars in place more and more. Gray and red dust plumed. Chips of brick and concrete rained to the floor. On Bull's 4th pull, half the wall came away, and the strong man fell backward, out of sight, underneath the wall as it fell. Bull! Cy screeched and raced to aid the man. Father Time was right behind him. But before they could reach their fallen friend, the wall flew up and away, tossed to the side by Bull's incredible strength. The inner door to the cell block burst open, and all hell broke loose. Gunshots. A lot of them. In the madness and chaos, Sai was swept up and away by a bloodied bull. The boy screamed and begged to be taken back, but Bull to allow him to help, but the strong man wouldn't listen. Bull slung Sai over one shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and only then was Sai able to see the men, Blaze among them, rushing from the hole in the wall like rats fleeing a flooded basement. More gunshots. Peter stumbled from the opening, bloodied hands grasping his shirt, which was equally soaked with blood. Sai witnessed Blaze stop and turn to aid Peter before Bull rounded a corner and he lost sight of what happened next. Paper, shot through the back with exit wounds in his abdomen, staggered forward a few more steps into freedom before he was shot one last time in the neck and dropped to his knees. He clung to life, writhing in a mud made of dirt and his own vital lifeblood. This wasn't good. He knew that. As the light of the world faded, Peter Stout fought to hold back death. But, alas, the battle was futile. Blaze, hearing Peter cry out behind her, slid to a halt and spun on her heels. She saw Peter go down, heard the men who had shot him coming, and stood her ground. With her fists balled at her sides, she waited for the gunmen to show themselves, her rage burning with ferocity in her caustic guts. Mutton Chops was the first one out, gun raised, ready to continue firing, but when he pulled the trigger, over and over again the hammer clicked on spent chambers. The young cop was outside next, but his gun wasn't raised. He was wild-eyed with horror, staring at Peter's now still body in the bloody mud. Mutton Chops had enough time to unlock the cylinder of his revolver and reach for fresh shells, which were held in a row on his Sam Brown belt like little glistening tombstones in a cracked brown field, before Blaze opened wide her mouth and unleashed hell. The gout of flame that belched from Blaze's parted lips engulfed the two cops instantly, yet she continued, spitting napalm-like saliva over the men as they writhed under her onslaught. They dropped into fiery balls at her feet, and still she roared. The two men screamed until their vocal cords melted, and the night felt eerily silent despite the spit and crackle of cooking flesh. But that did not stop her either. She blew her dragon's breath over them both and watched with more than a modicum of righteousness as their limbs shriveled and drew inward, fusing with their blackened torsos. And still, she continued, until the men were nothing but ash and cinders. Only then did she go to Peter. Only when the cops were nothing more than dust in the wind did she drop beside Paper the living canvas, whose beautiful body art, painted on him by his twin sister, was hidden under layers of gore. Only then did she allow herself to cry. She pulled Peter's head into her lap and sat back on her haunches, petting his chilly, sweat-slicked brow. She rocked with him like that, all the time trying to call for help, but something had broken in her throat, and she could do little more than squeak like a timid mouse. Blaze had never been much for words, but after this night, she would never speak again. As Peter Stout, lovingly known as Paper the living canvas, passed from this world, his sister, Marianne Stout, who had once shared flesh with her conjoined twin, who had been cut from the same cloth, as it were, was climbing into the back of one of the carnival's panel trucks. She gripped the bar to pull herself up into the bed when her chest tightened and her heart, quite literally, stopped. She could draw no breath, could not move. Her muscles had locked up, as if she'd passed into the process of rigor mortis. Her bowels and bladder let loose, and she soiled herself. Suddenly, she was on her back, in the dirt on the side of the road, half a mile from the police station, where Father Time had parked the truck, but had no recollection of falling. Sai was immediately at her side, as was Father Time and Mother Nurture. Voices came and went as she writhed in the dusty Texas earth. Something had been stolen from her, something vital, something she had never gone without. Then, all at once, her heart pounded to life, and she inhaled great gulps of breath. Cy was hollering, "Mama! Mama, are you okay? What's wrong with her?" Sighed Father Time's voice. "Give her room, boy." Mother Nurture close to her ear. "Marianne, lovely, what's wrong?" Marianne wept, her words hitching with emotion. Paper, Peter. What's wrong with Peter? Paper. God damn it. What's wrong with Paper? Someone asked from the back of the truck. He's. She couldn't say it. The word was too horrible to utter, too full of pain and loss, and she couldn't shove its malformed presence past her lips. Dead. Peter was dead, and so was a part of her, a missing piece of a puzzle that would never be whole again. Cy couldn't bear to see his mother like this, yet there was nothing he could do to help her. He could only watch as she drew up into a fetal position in the dirt and wept. Something horrible had happened to Peter, something irreparable, and suddenly he knew. A shroud dropped over every face surrounding him, and he knew that they had all felt what he felt. Peter Stout, Paper, the living canvas, had been taken from them. A sickening miasma of loss descended, clinging to the group like the stench of rot. And then he saw her. Blaze. She was staggering down the road, carrying something in her arms. That something, Cy knew, was Peter. The man's arm dangled lifelessly from his side, swaying as Blaze strode toward them. How was Blaze, so small and unimposing, able to carry him? Surely, Peter Stout weighed more than the moon. As Blaze drew closer, Cy could see her lips moving but couldn't hear a word. At first, he thought it was the distance muting her, but then she was upon them, less than a few feet away, holding Peter's gut-shot corpse in her arms, tears streaming down her cheeks, mouth working, but not so much as a squeak passing from between her lips, and Cy believed grief had stolen her speech. The memory of the dead silenced all. He'd forgotten all about his broken collarbone. The pain, like Peter, was gone, replaced by the crushing gravity of despair. They would never be the same again, not without Peter. He would never be the same. But now was not the time for mourning. So he threw up a wall taller and wider than even the walls of Tiryns, a wall that separated him from the moment, from Peter's death, a wall that fortified him against hostile forces. And that was when he understood. The world was a heartless, chaotic place, and without walls, he would eventually succumb to hopelessness. So he did what Hank had told him in the back of the paddy wagon. He built his wall, and he built it high, and he put everything he loved behind it. "Get him on the truck," said Father Time, breaking the silence. "Everyone get up in there. We gotta go. We ain't got the time." He sounded so unconscionably cruel, but no one balked. They all followed his orders, for they all knew, Cy most of all, that if they didn't move, if they didn't get back on the road, they would lose far more than Paper, the living canvas. So it goes. Hello, everybody. If you're just now joining us, I'm reading The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to get a copy for yourself. I appreciate the support. Let me see if I should... No, we're only at 34 minutes, but we only got like 34 pages to read tonight. Let's see how much farther we got. We got 20 more. I can do at least one more subchapter. Yeah, I'm going to do one more subchapter, take a break, and then I'll be back to finish up this chapter. 18. Hank drove, with Father Time and Mother Nurture in the cab with him. packed in like sardines, and the rest of the escapees in the bed of the truck. The ruts in the road signaled agony for Cy, his shoulders screaming with every bump. Marianne lay with her brother in the center of them all, surrounded by mournful tent men. The roustabout sat quietly, all grieving in their own way. There was love here, and Cy could nearly hear the shards of their collective broken hearts grinding together. The carnival was packed and ready to go when they returned to the fairgrounds. Not a shred of fabric or stake of wood was left on the property. Sandoval had the engine fueled and ready to go, the chimney spitting gray smoke into the starless sky of darkened morning. Hank stayed in the truck while the tent men offloaded themselves, two of them staying behind to handle Peter's body. Cy headed for the train with his mother, fully intending to hit his bunk and cry in his own tearless way. But Father Time caught up with him, saying, "You need to come with me, now." "What? Why?" Cy cried. "I want to stay with Mom." "Go with him, Cy," Marianne told him. "He needs you more than I do right now. I have Mother. She's enough until you get back." But, where are we going?" "To see an old friend. It's the only way I know to make this right." "Go on, baby," said Marianne. She hugged him tightly and kissed his cheek. "You help Father get us out of this mess, and when you get back, we'll say goodbye to Peter." Her voice caught on the barbs of her broken soul. "Together. We'll say goodbye together. Go on." "But I don't want to go," Cy whined, wishing he could cry properly. His lack of tear ducts suddenly seemed an atrocious deformity. He wanted to weep with her, show her the proof of his own broken heart in the tears streaming down his cheeks. For the first time, he felt truly different than anyone else in his family. He felt like an outsider, an outcast, even among outcasts. "Go with Father, Cy. I love you. I love you so much, but I trust him. You go with him and save us, please, for me." Yes, ma'am." She took his face in her hands and tenderly pulled his head down. She placed her lips against his horn, and he could feel them there, as if she were kissing his fingernails. It was a pressure in his ears, her kiss was, and somehow that pressure was incredibly comforting, like a warm blanket or unfiltered sun on his flesh. "Come on, Cy," Father Time said. Cy reluctantly broke contact with his mother and followed Father Time to his Hudson, where Cy flopped bonelessly into the passenger seat. The car started, and they were off, the carnival train chugging away in the rear view, heading in the opposite direction. Cy absent-mindedly rubbed his chest, massaging his aching heart and aggravating his broken collarbone. He removed his shirt and fashioned a sling for his arm. Father Time kept his eyes on the road, remained quiet, until Cy cut through the silence with, "Where are we going?" "We're going to see an old friend of mine. Her name's Cassie Rutledge. She knows someone who can help." "Help with what?" Cy said, his voice an emotionless monotone. "The men who arrested us are going to be on our tail as soon as they find out we escaped. We got one chance to make it right. And Cassie, if she's still around, is our only hope." Cy nodded and fell quiet. He watched the West Texas landscape roll by behind his reflection in the passenger side window. He shared a kindred spirit with the emptiness on the other side of the glass, and although he trusted Father Time, he no longer believed in hope. Hope led to heartache. It was a tragedy for a boy his age to have to learn this lesson so young, but he assumed others had learned it at even younger ages. He needed to stop being so selfish. He wasn't the only person in the world hurting. Mom, for instance, had to be hurting worse than him. He had to be strong for her, and if Father Time's friend could help, so be it. "Here," Father Time said, handing Cy something that resembled one of Hank's rolled cigarettes. "Smoke this." "Why?" Sai asked in that same dead monotone. It'll help the pain and other things. There's a box of matches in the glove box. Can you reach him? Sai stuck the rolled cigarette between his lips, leaned forward, and opened the compartment with his good hand. He secured the box to his thigh with his bad hand, wincing at the pain literally any movement on that side of his body caused, and managed to extract a match and strike it. He held the fire to the tip of the rollie and inhaled, like he'd seen Hank do a million times over. The smoke hit his lungs, and he coughed like a rabid dog will bark. The pain was all encompassing for 5 full coughs, and Sai thought he was dying, that the coughing would surely kill him, until the pain was eventually replaced by a numbness so complete he couldn't feel his eye moving in his own head. Then he slept and dreamed he was being chased by a pack of malicious skunks. All right, let's see here. Yeah, the next chapter's so long, we'll power through to the end of the chapter after this break. And we'll definitely be done with chapter 3 tonight. It shouldn't take more than an hour more. My computer's saying it needs to update. Oh well, it's just gonna have to wait. But if you're just joining us, I'm reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. So if you want to help support the channel, support me, whatever, you just want a good book to read, links are down there in the doobly-doo. If you want to know why international shipping is so much, just let me know. The UK shipping. Just ask. Anyways, I'm gonna go take my break. When I get back, we're going to read till we're done with this chapter, and then it's on to Bobble next Wednesday. I'm excited for that because I love Bobble. You'll understand when we get to Bobble. Anyways, I'll be back in 15. I have returned, my friends. Are we to be ready to read? We are to be ready to read. Good. Zoop. Bobble is coming, but it's gonna be next week. You're gonna get one line from him at the end of this chapter. Bobble is the main character for a lot of people. But there are no main characters in this book. None whatsoever. No main characters. They're all important. Just like society. There's no one main character. Get it? Get it? Ready to read the reading. Let's go. For those of you actually following along at home, we are on page 280 of the paperback. Chapter 3, subchapter 19. Here we go. We're here, said Father Time. Sai's eye fluttered open to bright sunlight pouring in through the windshield. Father Time held the passenger side door open and had bent down to rouse the boy. Sai, rubbing his eye against the newfound glare, got out and stretched his arms wide. He was stiff all over, especially in the neck, but he felt like a brand new person otherwise, cogency flooding in as if a dam in his mind had broken. How's your shoulder? Asked Father Time. Oh, it's... Sai trailed off as he realized his collarbone didn't hurt at all. He rotated his affected arm and found it not affected. He looked to Father Time questioningly. How? Don't worry about it. Just glad you're feeling better. They stood in the gravel drive of a home that lay out in the middle of nowhere, desert all around, with mountains like the lower mandible of some great beast in the distance. The house itself had been white once upon a when. Sai could tell as much because the blue paint that had covered it was chipping and peeling, revealing the pale, dirty white underneath. The porch was half caved in on one side, and some birds had nested in the demolished section. Sai could hear them tweeting and see the telltale sign of the bunched debris from which their nests had been made, but he never actually saw any birds. Where are we? Sai asked. In Western Texas, just outside of a place called Washout. It doesn't have a name, really. I was raised here. Here being not much more than a general store and 24 people. There's even less around than when I lived here. Father Time seemed happy to be back home, yet also forlorn. Sai decided not to press with further questions. Father Time led Sai up onto the porch. Sai took his steps cautiously, expecting at any moment to crack through a board and plummet into the nothingness below the porch, but the boards held, even if they creaked like crypt doors. Father Time knocked gently on the door, and, when no one answered, he banged harder. Who's there? Came the soft, fragile voice of an old woman. It's me, was all Father Time said. I don't know no me's. You can open the door, but if you mean me harm, you should know I'm armed. She should be a poet, Sai said with a grin. She has a poet's soul, that's for sure. Father Time pulled open the door by its rusty knob, and the two entered. While the outside of the house had been in disrepair, the inside was neat and tidy. Sai caught the scent of lavender and was impressed with how the hardwood floor gleamed reflectively. The walls were a strange hue of light green, like mint ice cream, while the baseboards were eggshell white. The front door led directly into a small living room, inside which sat an elderly woman in a flower-patterned easy chair. Her feet were up on a similarly upholstered ottoman. She had knitting in her lap, yet how she managed to do the work was beyond Sai. Her hands were so gnarled and bent with arthritis. Her silver hair was in a bun on the top of her hair, held in place by two crochet needles. I will be damned. Is that you, boy? The old woman said to Father Time. Father Time nodded and said, It is. How you doing, Cassie? Fair to passing. My lord, do you ever strike handsome? It's so good to see you. Come here and give me a hug, you big brute. Father Time obliged, bending in half to reach her. She slapped him heartily on the back with her crooked hands, and Cy heard the man grunt against the force of the blows. Strong as ever, Father Time said as he rose. You look good, too. Cassie Rutledge cackled. You a darn liar, boy. I look like hell warmed over and served cold. But I make it. Don't do much walking no more. Knees gone bad, and I got the gout. Feet nearly as useless as these dad burned hands of mine. Who's with you? Come closer, here. Right up close. My vision's worse than my hands and feet, and from here you look like you ain't got but one eye. She cackled again, and Cy was reminded of the Wicked Witch of the West from one of his favorite books, The Wizard of Oz. It ain't your eyes, Cass. The boy only has the one eye, said Father Time. Criminally, Cassie cried. A true to life Cyclops, heavens forbid, you poor child. I do all right, Cy said timidly. I bet you do. I just bet you do. A big kid, too. How old is you? 12 or 13? Cassie glanced confusedly at Father Time, saying, He don't know how old he is? It's a long story, and we're on a short leash. I hate to jump right into it when I ain't seen you in decades, but we need your help. Yes. You can only call when you need me. That's fine by me. I'd do anything for you, son. You know that. Well, what can I do for y'all? It's not really anything you need to do. I need to speak to the witch. Witch? Cy said incredulously. A real witch? She's more than some old witch, boy, Cassie told him. She's a lot more. What kind of trouble you get yourself in? Here, Cassie Rutledge called Father Time that strange name again, and Father Time quickly corrected her, although he did so kindly. Oh, by God, I forgot all about that. I were the one give you that name, if and I recall correctly. Yes'm, that was you. I'm honored. You still have that plant what was growing out of your mother's grave? Yes'm, said Father Time, although it's quite different these days. Still, it's alive and well. Father Time paused, took a deep breath, and continued. I hate to be a rush, but we really do need to be going. Can I help you to the car? No, sir. I don't go nowheres anymore, son. I can give you directions, but I ain't riding in no car. My old bones can't take it. Give me a pencil from that cup of 'em over there on the kitchen counter and one of them sheets of notary by the fridge. I'll draw you a map, but I'm surprised you forgot where she is. I didn't forget, said Father Time. I just didn't suspect she'd cotton to me showing up unannounced. She won't care none, not if you have money. You remember that? Yes'm. You sure she won't mind? Oh, Rhonda don't care a lick about nothing but money, son. No telling what she does with it, but it's all she needs. Hope you brought plenty. You fancy coming back once you're done and catching me up on how and where you been all these long years? Father Time glanced to Cy. Cy nodded. Father Time turned back to Cassie, saying, I don't see why not. Have you seen, what did you call her, Rhonda? Cassie said that was right. Have you seen Rhonda since, you know? I haven't. Bet you're wondering if she's still kicking around, but I also reckon you believe she is, and you'd be right. No telling how old she is or how old she'll live to be, but she's still around. Clarence Bawden, you remember old Clarence? No, ma'am. Well, that don't make no never mind. He called on her about 4 months back 'cause his boy was sickly. Cancer, them old sawbones said. She worked it all out in the end. Boy's got a shine to him nowadays, he's so bright. Plans to be a doctor his own self. Wants to pay back God, he said, for saving him. God is good, but what makes him good is that he ain't no engine giver. His blessings ain't got no charge come with them. That's why they call them blessings. Praise Jesus. It was good seeing you, Cass. We'll stop by once we're done at Rhonda's. You sure you don't need a map? You remember right where she lives? Father Time smiled. How could I ever forget? 20. The drive out to the witchery woman's shack took almost an hour. Father Time had been correct. He hadn't forgotten where she was located and drove with confidence. Along the way, Sai had asked why Father Time had taken him along, and Father Time had answered, "There's more to this world than what we see on the surface. I don't know how Rhonda does what she does, but it's something to behold. And honestly, she scares hell out of me. You you can call yourself support, if you like." When Sai asked why Father Time hadn't brought Mother Nurture or Mom, Father Time explained that they had their own stuff to worry about, then added, "Besides, like I said, I think you should experience this. Your mother feels like you have I guess, how she'd put it was, you have a destiny, fate, or some such. She said she saw you coming along, and I'm not one to argue with Lady Quill." Sai had ridden the rest of the way in silence, his mind a ball of confusion, what with his shoulder having somehow mended itself. He wanted to tell Father Time that he'd seen plenty of miraculous events in his life. His mother was a true-to-life mystic, for one, and his shoulder's magic act was just another in a long line of them, but he remained quiet. Father Time knocked on the shack's door, and it swung effortlessly inward. "Enter," croaked a voice from the grave that chilled Sai to his marrow. Rhonda, the witchery woman, sat in a wicker chair in the center of the room. A gray cat suffering from a horrible case of mange rested in her lap. The old woman, and calling her simply old was kind, Sai thought, because the woman looked to be 100 if she were a day. A more accurate descriptor might have been ancient. Petted the cat's patchy hide, as if she were unconcerned with its condition. Seeing the state of the shack, a case of mange was the least of this woman's problems. The interior of the building looked lived in and abandoned at the same time, a dichotomy Sai couldn't parse. A bed made of sticks with a single quilt covering the jutting branches was the room's only furniture, aside from the chair in which Rhonda sat. There was no sink, no fridge, no toilet to speak of. Sai couldn't help but wonder how the woman cleaned herself, or where she went to the bathroom. But once he caught the first whiff of the shack's interior, all those questions were answered. "You need my help," said Rhonda. It was not a question. And was that dust pluming from her mouth when she spoke? Or smoke? "This time it's different," said Father Time. "So you say, but I don't see differences. I only see correcting wrongs. They are coming for you, and you want to protect your kin, be they not blood." "Yes, I can help. But first, I am to be paid." "I have 3,000. It's all I have." "No, child. I do not require money this time. I require the boy." How so?" asked Father Time. "What does she mean?" Sai asked. Every time he thought he couldn't possibly be any more terrified, his heart rate proved otherwise. Father Time shushed him. They waited for the witch to answer. "I see in him something I require. No need in explaining, for you would not understand. Come, boy, kneel." Sai glanced to Father Time. And Father Time hitched his chin at Rhonda, saying, "Go on. She won't hurt you. Might seem like she is, but you'll be fine afterward. Trust me." "What do you mean it will seem like?" "Sigh, please. We don't have time for all these questions." "Yes, sir," Sai said, and reluctantly approached the witch. He dropped to his knees beside her chair. In a blink, her fist closed around his horn. She was so fast, as if age had increased her speed instead of retarding it. He hadn't sanded his horn in some time, and it had grown a good 4 inches. He could feel her calloused hand there, twisting, stroking. His ears rang with every movement of her skin against the grain. "You want to help your family, be they not blood. You agree to this?" Yes, ma'am." "Good. Now close your eye and see. See." Sai closed his eye and saw a room full of filing cabinets, although he did not know at the time that was what they were called. To him, they were like crypts in a tomb, and just as ominous. The filing room was devoid of life, dark and smelling of pine-scented cleaner, brown-walled with gray carpet, stark, empty. He blinked to adjust his vision, to cut through the gloom, but when he opened his eye again, he was back in Rhonda's shack. The cabinets were gone. "This is what you seek. There are too many lives involved here. Too many will be on your trail. Your only hope is to remove their ability to provide. You've done what you've done, and this is not an easy task. Even should you destroy their evidence, they will always remember you. They will not stop, and they cannot all be killed. For when one falls, another yet shall take their place." "I don't want to kill anybody," Sai said timidly. "But you would like to save your family. You want to escape their clutches." Although these were not questions, Sai answered, "Yes." "Then blood shall be shed. It is the way of things. A life for you and yours. An eye for an eye." The witch cackled, and the sound of it was like chewing glass. "What does he have to do?" asked Father Time. "You are not involved in this," Rhonda spat. "You keep quiet and let the boy decide if his family is worth the cost that needs to be paid." Then, to Sai, "Your family is worth everything to you. You will do this." I'm scared." "Yes, so you are. But you will do this. It has to be done. And you must only follow the path laid out before you. What say you?" It was the first true question she'd asked, and Sai shivered hearing it. I'll do whatever I have to for my family." Father Time stepped close. "Sai?" The witchery woman hissed at Father Time. He retreated several steps. Sai didn't blame him one bit. Had he been on the receiving end, he'd have bolted for the door. The only thing keeping him here now was the witch's hand on his horn. He knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that if he moved, she'd tear his horn from his very skull with the ease of an evil child plucking wings from a dragonfly. "It is done. Go. Lie down. We begin now." Sai lay out on the bed, which was only a bed in theory. Jagged branches dug into his back, but he didn't complain. He trembled as the witchery woman peeled his shirt from his abdomen and draped it over his chest. She worked at his stomach, slicing with some unknown instrument. Every fiber of his being rallied against this, begged him to move, but he found moving to be an impossible task. Her hand went to her face to swipe damp from her forehead, and she left a bloody swath above her brow in the wake of her hand. What she... Hush! Spat Rhonda. Sai hushed. She stood, pulling ropes of slimed and bloodied tubing from what seemed to be his stomach. Although he could not look down, for his head was rooted in place by unseen forces, the ropes unspooled from him, and Rhonda carried them to the shack's only door, where she wrapped its length around the knob in 3 deliberate movements. Once done, she returned to Sai's bedside. You have but one task: to make those who hunt you and yours forget. You will pay blood for blood, but that payment shall come at a later time. I take what I need from you now as a down payment, but I will come calling for the rest when the time comes. Now, close your eyes and see. Wait, what am I supposed to do? I've never done anything. You will know when you're ushered into the someplace. The withered wants what the withered needs, and it shall provide you with guidance, thus satiating itself. You need only not fight it. Close your eyes, boy. Sai did as he was told. Voices and sounds became light. The light bled away to reveal a throng of men, women, and children standing in someone's backyard. Satellite groups here and there, mostly men talking to men and women speaking to other women, while the children scurried around about their childish business of play and gleeful shrieking. Despite how he'd gotten here, Sai found the scene entirely comforting, in the same way he coveted those occasions when his family would stop between locations and picnic in the middle of nowhere, simply enjoying each other's company without the intrusion of rubes and the necessity to entertain them. All Sai's comfort melted away when he recognized the man working the barbecue grill in the center of it all, the agent whom Sai had attempted to tackle, the man who'd led the charge to imprison him and his. Sai couldn't remember the man's name, but just the sight of his face, happy and carefree as he was, infuriated the boy. Then he recognized the other men's faces, one by one, as all of the men in attendance had been there that night. How they could go on about their lives and enjoy themselves after having caused, in some way, Peter Stout's death burned inside Sai. Had he a bomb, he'd no doubt have ended them all right then and there. This need to maim and murder was so unlike him that Sai barely recognized himself. He hated these men, partly for what they had done to his family, but also because they incited in him an anger and need for vengeance so severe it made him sick to his stomach. The witchery woman had said that the withered, whatever that was, wanted what the withered needed, but he had no inkling of what he should be doing here. It was obvious from the jump that no one could see him. Only once had someone made eye contact with him, but he soon realized that they were simply looking off into the distance and not at him, for when he moved, their gaze did not follow him. He milled about the crowd, listening to generic conversations about work lives and harmless complaints about their respective families. This one's husband didn't do the dishes. That one's wife refused to cook on Sundays. Another's child was doing poorly in school, they said because the kid's teacher was a mongrel. Sai was familiar with that word, but not in this context. Even more conversations about the war, which led Sai to overhear one of the men discussing the roundup of a bunch of Carney draft violators. Rage suffused Sai. That bomb idea was growing more and more attractive. Inside. The voice was soft, sibilant, and in his own head. Inside, he wondered. Inside where? Them. Inside them. How was he supposed to? Sai, feeling drawn to do so, stepped into the man who was bragging about arresting the draft violators. The barbecue vanished in a flash, and he was transported to a bedroom where he was swinging a belt down over and over across the back of a naked woman. A feeling of pride and righteous work done well appalled him. He took a step back and exited the now laughing man. These are the monsters. Who are you? Sai asked the voice, but received no answer. Instead, the voice repeated its demands. Inside. Sai moved across the yard to the agent in charge and drifted into the man. Once more, voices and sounds coalesced into brilliant light until the light bled away and Sai was in the dark. Moans rose in the black. Moans rose in the black, quickened breathing until another sudden flash of light revealed all. He lay on his back with a man's body straddling him. The man had clicked on a bedside lamp and was pulling back, rising, one warm hand pressed firmly into Sai's chest. Only it wasn't his chest. It was the agent's chest. He was in the man's body, heard the man's thoughts, how he warred over being happy with this other man, yet was disgusted by him all the same. Am I a sissy? What would Michelle think if she found out about John? This is unnatural. What am I doing here? Why does it feel so good? You're a husband and a father. You're ruining your life. John isn't worth the consequences. That was nice, cooed John as he rolled off the agent to cuddle up beside him. Sai was up on the edge of the bed with one quick movement. He lit a cigarette and puffed at it while he kicked into his slacks. Where are you going? Asked John. I gotta get home, the agent said. This can't happen again. What? Why not? Didn't you like it? No, the agent lied. It was a mistake. You're all alike. Serves me right fucking a married man. Ain't my fault you're a confused little boy pretending at being a man. Sai was on his feet, fists balled at his sides, looking down at John's naked form. He's beautiful. Shut up. Just lay back down. This ain't right. Oh, but it feels so good. What did you call me? Growled the agent. Nothing. Hurry home to your wife and kids. I'm sure they miss you. John rolled over, signaling the end of the conversation. This never happened. You hear me? Said the agent. Yeah. John waved him off, and Sai stepped out. He was back at the barbecue, surrounded by those who did what they did in the name of the law. But there was a man who whipped women with a belt, and there was one who had committed adultery. These are the monsters. Yes, Sai thought. Here, there be many. What might happen, said the voice, if people found out? What do you mean? They would like their secrets kept. What are you saying? You know what I am saying. And Sai did know. What he must do was all too clear now, and Sai knew without a doubt what must be done to protect his family. Before returning, Sai had one more task to complete. He drifted into the agent's house, passing effortlessly through walls and doors alike, until he was out front, standing in the middle of the agent's front yard, green and square, immaculately kept. He floated to the mailbox and leaned down, his face passing easily through the walls of the letter receptacle. And there, on an unretrieved piece of mail, was the agent's address, street, city, state, and all. Sai's work here was done. You're just now joining us. I'm reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me. New pen name links are down there in the doobly-doo. If you want to know why the EK, why the UK shipping is so expensive, just ask. All right. We only got a couple more pages. Got about 4 or 5 more pages right here. And then next week, we get to jump into Bobble, which is a lot of people's favorite character. I don't know why. All right. 21. When Father Time and Sai returned to Cassie Rutledge's home, they found her dead in her easy chair. The woman seemed at first to be sleeping, but upon closer inspection, and after failing to respond to their attempts to rouse her, her fate became obvious. She looked to have died in mid-stitch, with an unfinished doily resting in her lap. Sai waited outside, out of respect, while Father Time said his final goodbyes. Then they left, without reporting Cassie's passing to locals. It not being his place, Sai didn't ask why. In fact, he was relieved. He wanted to put as much distance between himself and the witchery woman as humanly possible. A day's drive caught them up with the carnival. Father Time never brought up what they'd done and did not inquire as to what Sai had seen and experienced during the witchery woman's ritual, and Sai was glad of that too. He never wanted to speak of what had occurred, and Father Time seemed to respect that. Peter Stout's funeral pyre was erected on Sunday morning, and the day was spent celebrating the life of Paper the Living Canvas. Marianne tattooed blank canvases on all who asked for one, simple images of picture frames showcasing nothing more than flesh. Peter's dates of birth and death were etched across the bottom of the frames. Sai, however, did not accept one. He would remember Peter in his own way. Peter was burned at dusk, as people shared their remembrances, some drunk, others stoned, but all in good spirits. A lost life celebrated struck Sai as more than passing odd, but such were the ways of carnival folks, and although he'd never known any other way of ushering off the dead, the partying still bothered him. Whether because it seemed offensive to the dead, or that he continued to struggle with Peter being snatched from them, he couldn't say. That he missed Peter dearly was all he was certain of. Monday morning, Sai asked Mother Nurture for an envelope, and she gladly handed one over without question. He spent 2 hours composing 3 lines. Although his plan appalled him, he saw no other course of action. None of his family asked him, or Father Time, if they'd succeeded in their task. They all seemed to trust that everything was going to be all right. Sai could only wish for such confidence in himself. Once he was done with the short letter, he asked Father Time to drive him to the nearest post office. Father Time did so, even going in and purchasing a stamp for Sai's letter so that the boy wouldn't have to deal with the inevitable stares and questions over his appearance. Sai affixed the stamp to his letter and dropped it in the provided mailbox located on the street in front of the post office. Then they returned home. That same Monday, Special Agent in Charge Douglas Holland received a phone call that the men he and his team had arrested Friday night had escaped from custody, and that 2 police officers were currently missing in the wake of the jailbreak. Holland, a Mississippi native, showered and dressed and prepared for a long drive into West Texas, where he would investigate the jailbreak. But there was nothing to be found. Yes, someone had managed to tear out the brick wall of the cell block, likely with the aid of a truck or similar conveyance, and cut through the interior cage's lock boxes. But other than that, there was no evidence to collect. All he could do was track down the carnival and once more arrest the people involved. On Thursday, Holland's wife called and said she had a letter waiting for him and that someone had written above his name and address, "Important, open immediately." Holland told his wife to open the envelope and read to him the contents while he ate a lunch of fried chicken and mashed potatoes he'd purchased at a local establishment. His wife began to read, but soon her voice trailed off. I know about John. If you want your secret. Holland's heart plummeted. Michelle? Hey, hun, you. John? My John? She asked. I don't know any goddamn John. He barked into the handset. What does the rest of it say? Read it to me. Have you been with my brother? Have you been seeing my brother? It's not with you. You can read this when you get home. You'll have plenty of time because me and the kids won't be here to bother you. She slammed the phone down in his ear, and he could only sit there, staring at the handset as if it were the toughest mathematical equation he'd ever come across. Despite his responsibilities in Texas, Special Agent in Charge Douglas Holland flew home the next morning. His wife had stayed true to her words. The house was empty of all but their mutually acquired furniture and Holland's own personal possessions. All his wife and kids' clothing had vanished from their respective closets, and the vast majority of the kids' toys were gone, too. Left on the kitchen table, half in and half out of its envelope, was the letter Michelle had started to read but had not finished. Now, he read the note in full. I know about John. If you want your affair kept quiet, you will forget about the Cortez family carnival. If not, the world will know. Douglas Holland knew he couldn't do that. There were too many people involved, too many agencies who would require reasons for calling off his men. If he so much as alluded to such an action, he would be demoted or fired for dereliction of duty. But if he continued, and his affair with John was made public, quite literally at the end of his rope, Special Agent in Charge Douglas Holland went out into his garage and hung himself. His body wouldn't be found for 4 days, and only then because his wife had returned to their once shared home to deliver him divorce papers. Even suffused with anger as she was, she knew she should keep Douglas's secret, for allowing it to become public would bring shame not only him, but his family too. And and if she protected no one else, she had to protect the kids. So she shredded the letter, then burned the scraps in the barbecue grill where Douglas had, just this past weekend, grilled burgers and hot dogs for his subordinates and their families. That get together would be the memory she would focus on for the rest of her life, her family's last bliss before everything went south forever. My God, what am I going to tell the children? She thought as she watched the letter reduced to so much ash. When the fire died, she swirled a fork through the gray and smoking debris, mixing the remnants of charcoal and paper, just to be absolutely sure nothing was left, that nothing about Douglas's affair would ever see the light of day. Only when that was done did she call the police. But this wasn't the end. The Cortez family carnival, assured that they were safe, that Cy and Father Time had somehow miraculously saved them, would once again fall under the watchful eye of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. What Cy had done amounted to a band-aid on a gaping wound, and soon enough, that wound would fester from the inside out. With Cy's stopgap measure in place, the carnival would find itself lulled into a false sense of security. But we'll get to that eventually. Reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flamin' Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. If you want to buy a copy for yourself and read it at your own pace, links are down there in the doobly-doo. Bidding on a hardcover of Ulysses. Wish me luck. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. 22. The next phase of Cy's life would begin later that same year, on an unseasonably warm fall day, while on location in Maine. Bangor, to be exact. The fairground in Bangor was located on the same property as the local horse track. Cy spent most of that first day watching jockeys doing practice runs for that evening's race, seeing the animals run, how their muscles propelled them, and the tiny men on their backs brought Cy a lot of joy, and he stayed there until sundown when the carnival opened its gates. Then he retreated to Mother Nurture's caboose, where he read until he fell asleep at Father Time's desk. The next morning, the carnival was abuzz with news. It seemed Father Time and Mother Nurture had been called to the front gate to interview a new geek show performer, a replacement for Paper the Living Canvas. Cy, being the curious cat that he was, required satisfaction. He snuck through the concourse as his big frame would allow until he made it to the ticket booth, behind which he hid, eavesdropping on those who spoke around the corner. We don't really take in kids, Father Time was saying. Kids? Cy wondered. The idea that he'd have someone around his age with whom to run around imbued him with the first excitement he'd experienced since Peter Stout's death. He chanced a glance around the edge of the ticket booth, but could only see Father Time and Mother Nurture, with their backs to him, and a woman holding the handles of a wheelbarrow. Inside the barrow was a bundle of what he assumed were blankets. I can't do this anymore. No, wrong voice, sorry. I can't do this anymore, said the woman. She was affluently dressed, nothing like the rubes who attended their shows and concessions. Wealth came off her in nearly visible waves, from the way she dressed to her perfect makeup and done-up hair. She screamed royalty and celebrity. Might she be a movie star? Cy thought she very well could have been. The way he talks, it's disgusting. Abhorrent. I damn the day he was removed from my body. She's a prudish cunt, came a screeching, inhuman voice. The sound of it was so startling, Cy flinched when he heard it. See what I mean? The woman whined. Listen to how he speaks to me. Quit twisting your titties, mama. These motherfuckers don't want me. You're stuck. Screwed as a duck's dick. The voice devolved into cackles. If you don't take him, I swear to God and all that is blessed, I will leave him here. Call the cops on me. I don't care. Even prison would be kinder than living another day with him. Suck a fart out my ass, mama. Shut up! Mother Nurture and Father Time shared a glance, and Cy worried they would see him ducked out of the way. What do you think? Asked Father Time. Mother Nurture sighed. Does his condition require medical supervision? I wouldn't know. No doctor won't see him because of that mouth of his. I've been chased from every hospital. Cy. Someone hissed from behind him. Caught, Cy turned to find Clay hobbling toward him. What you doing, boss? Clay whispered once he got close enough. Shh! Cy hissed back. I'm trying to listen now. Clay sidled up beside Cy, and together they spied. Goddamn eye. Give me a second. Sorry. Made it this far without medical care, so I suppose he must be healthy, the mother continued. He gets cold easily, that much I do know. Maybe if your highfalutin ass would take me out in the sunlight every now and then, I wouldn't be freezing my cock and balls off all goddamn time. For the love of God, please save me from this little monster. Monster? Bitch, you're the only monster I see. I'm your goddamn son. You're no son of mine. No son of mine would treat me the way you treat me. The way I treat you? You must be out of your head. Take another mommy's little helper and go to hell. Or take a handful for all I care. Why don't you tell them how you make me sleep in the garage, huh? Tell them that, you old biddy. What's his name? Asked Mother Nurture. Alex, but he won't answer that, no matter how hard I try. What do you prefer to be called? You see how nice she is, Mama? Asking me what I prefer. Now that's how a decent motherfucker is supposed to act. I kind of fancy Bobble, if you would. Bobble? Asked Father Time. Yeah, asshole. As in I'm a human fucking bobblehead, get it? I already like this guy, Clay said, snickering. I already like this guy, Clay said, snickering. Yeah, Cy said, me too. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. Bobble, incoming. I don't know why I remembered only one line of dialogue. There was a lot. All right, next week, we're starting chapter 4. Chapter 4 is all Boblinski. and one of my favorite parts of the first book. Anyways, so how y'all doing? Y'all doing all right out there? I got to update my computer and all that stuff. This was a short one, but I knew it was going to be short because we only had 30 pages left. Anyways, here at the end, I've been reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to get your own copies. But yeah, so we've gotten all the way up to Chapter 4. We'll be starting Chapter 4 either this weekend or next Wednesday. I'm hoping to have more time free in the afternoons. I don't know. You also have another book review coming from me, what, tomorrow? Tomorrow? I can't remember. Let me go check. All right. Yeah. Actually, on the first? Yeah, it's Saturday. So it's Saturday. That you have another one coming. You doing okay, Zoop? I'm glad. When does your Ulysses thing end? Has it already ended? Shoop dooby doop dooby doop zoopy doopy doopy doop. Hey, in 3 days? All right, so it's not something that's going to happen tonight. Well, good luck with that, and thanks for popping in. We start the Homie Bobbles chapter next week, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to do, say, or anything like that. I don't know. I'm kind of in the mood for a hangout and chat. I don't have anything else to do the rest of the night. I don't know. I'll see what the Discord says. I might be back about 7:30, 8 o'clock. We'll see. Because my youngest is cooking dinner tonight, so we should be good. Anyways, but until next time, I have been E, you've been you. This has been another episode of The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. All links are down there in the doobly-doo. A 1946 hardcover. Ooh, that's fancy. Talk to y'all next time. Love you. Bye.